Build Your Business listeners. This is Matt Reynolds, your host for the podcast, and you are listening to what we are calling the legacy episodes. And really, these are the pre-episodes that really led to this podcast, the Build Your Business podcast. This is really my life's work and my brother's life's work in building your business. And so they were originally published in the Barbell Logic podcast as part of the Principles or Coaching Success series, but really touch on similar topics to the Build Your Business podcast: how to improve your productivity, how to set and accomplish your goals, deprioritize urgent tasks, to focus on what is most important to you, and most importantly, to become a better person and leader and business owner overall. I'm proud to bring you these podcasts. Again, many years of life's work, several years of podcasts, and several decades of business ownership. Hope you enjoy them and learn from them. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast. I'm your host, Matt Reynolds. This is another episode of the Coaching Success series. Hey, happy Friday, everyone. We'll dive right in as we usually do. And the question I have for you this week is, do you really know where your time is going? We've talked a little bit about this in the past, but I want to talk a little bit about a time audit today, about doing a time audit. But before I get there, I actually want to walk through some examples in my own life that are not just super efficient days. So I know I have a reputation for getting lots of work done and being super efficient, kind of live my life, maybe even too efficient. When I think of the worst days, normal days in my life, not tragic days, not something where something terrible happens, but when I wake up, maybe it's a Saturday, sometimes it's not. Working from home, obviously I have the freedom to do that. We talked about this last week. It's when I'm lazy. It's when I wake up and I'm tired and I'm unmotivated to work. And the worst days are those days where I just basically do nothing and I binge watch Netflix and take naps, and I feel terrible at the end of that day. I don't feel better. I don't feel energized. Certainly getting good sleep is something that helps me feel excellent. As a matter of fact, last weekend, my wife and I went to a resort down in Branson for a couple of days. There was a wine tasting event and dinner, and we just spent a lot of time walking, light training, went to a spa, had a massage, hung out in the hot tub and the steam sauna and the ice room and all that sort of stuff. And it was great. I felt great doing those things. I got up every morning at the resort, went out into the lobby and got my couple hours worth of work done. This is even over the weekend. And it was great. And then last Saturday was another great day. I'd worked a ton the previous week. I've traveled all this time. And I knew that I didn't just want to sit around and do nothing. And so my wife and I made a list of things that we would like to accomplish on this Saturday. And so we had a kind of a special meal we were making. I've talked before about I don't do a lot of grocery shopping. We get that delivered, but we went to kind of the specialty grocery store. I know the way it's laid out. Even here's my efficiency OCD is that I will make the list of groceries that I need to pick up based on the order that I'll walk around the grocery store in. So I know that, fruits and vegetables are up front, and then I go over to the right and I get the good cheese or the good bread, and then around to the back to the dairy, and then whatever I need in the middle, and then come back, right? And so we did some grocery shopping. We went and bought some fall pumpkins and stuff that people like my wife love to put on the front porch. we did all those things. And so just ran some good errands, went to Lowe's, got some stuff. It reminds me of I think it's a scene in Old School where Will Ferrell's talking about like the great Saturday, have a great Saturday plan. We're going to the home store. We're going to look at some shades, and maybe if we have enough time, we get to it's that. And so when I did that, it wasn't like a tremendous amount of work. I still woke up that morning. I knocked out some work, some Barbell Logic work, but not very much. It was the weekend, and spent the rest of my day doing valuable things with my family, spending time with my family, going shopping, doing some stuff so that I felt like I still accomplished something. And so for me, the worst days are when I accomplish nothing, but I also do no work. The second type of worst day is the day that I feel, or the days that I feel like I work all day, but I still accomplish nothing. This is a terrible feeling to feel like you accomplished nothing, but you worked all day and you're like, where did my time go? And so that's really what I want to talk about today is like, do you really know where your time is going? And some of this is going to be pulled from the book that's chapter 4, which is a chapter that's called Your Calendar is Not the Problem, You Are. And so we'll want to walk through some of the kind of major principles in that chapter. And so I would say this for most of you, I know some of you, but most of you I don't know personally, but I can tell you without any hesitation that your biggest time waster is you. Just like my biggest time waster is me. There's no doubt about it, right? So the calendar is a truth teller. And one of the things I love, I've mentioned this on the podcast before, is Parkinson's law. In 1955, a British naval historian, C. Northcote Parkinson, published a satirical essay with lots of truth in it in The Economist, taking aim at government bureaucracy and how slow the government works. Think about how slow the government works on everything. Certainly, I'm grateful for the government. I'm grateful for the Air Force contracts. It is amazing that anytime I have to deal with the government, how slow it is. Actually, as a side note, didn't have this in my notes for the podcast, trying to file some paperwork for our church as we're in the process of buying a building and had to get a certificate of no tax clearance. I had to do all this stuff through the Missouri Secretary of State. But I had to get a certificate of no state tax clearance, that we didn't owe any taxes for the state of Missouri. I think that's what it's called. And so I said, okay, cool. How do I do that? Oh, we can't do that here. You have to do that through the Department of Revenue. You can't talk to the Department of Revenue? Nope. We have no line of communication between it. Okay. So I have to go to the Department of Revenue. I have to file this thing, and then I have to file new paperwork. And it's just all this bureaucracy and slowness, right? And so in this article in The Economist, Parkinson wrote, and that's why it's called Parkinson's Law, that there is a seemingly limitless capacity to expand regardless of the goals or the complexity of the work. What Parkinson was saying was that work expands as to fill the time available for its completion. If you give yourself 2 weeks to write an article, it will take 2 weeks. If you give yourself 2 days, it will take 2 days. If you give yourself 2 hours, it will take 2 hours. Maybe it takes 3, but 3 hours is a lot faster than 2 weeks, right? And so that concept, we see this as corporations become more bloated. You think about the Boeings of the world, or the government, the US government, the biggest company probably in the world. And so, we've all experienced Parkinson's law in our lives. If we give ourselves a deadline that really it fills up the calendar on your calendar app, but it didn't really need to take that long. And so I'm going to tell a loving story about my wife. Rachel, if you listen to this, my wife struggles with this. And she struggles with this in places like travel, booking travel. I travel all the time for business primarily. If I can't book the entire trip in 10 minutes, and that typically involves 3 primary things, it's airline tickets, it's a hotel or Airbnb, and it's a car rental. If I can't do all 3 of those in 10 minutes, I'm taking too long. I've done this enough times. I know exactly where to look. And I've done this even with my family, where we stay at a hotel and Rachel probably could have found a hotel room a little bit nicer, maybe a little bit cheaper than what I booked. Not worth my time, right? Time is the most valuable asset we have. We can grow our wages. We can get more money. We can even put more effort into things. What we cannot do is gain more time. That's the great equalizer, right? And some of it, we don't know how much of that we have. Some of us have 25 or 30 years on this earth. Hopefully that's not you or me. Hopefully I have more than 50 years on this earth. Some of us get 100, whatever. But we don't know what that is, but we do know that it is extremely finite. You can't grow it and you can't roll it over. You can't buy more. And so when my wife books travel, she will agonize over the plane flights. She'll really agonize over the hotel room. She will agonize over things like Amazon purchases. I'll be like, hey, babe, could you buy some paper for the printer? And she'll look at the 100 different options on Amazon for printer paper, and she will spend 45 minutes looking at paper. She'll put 3 or 4 of those, her top choices, onto a private Amazon list and then ask me to look at the list and make a choice. And I'll say, nope, just order paper. I don't care. It doesn't literally have to be the best because my time is more important than actually finding the best paper, right? And there are people that are wired this way. As a matter of fact, they talked specifically about people that are wired this way at the acquisition.com conference that we went to. But she'll agonize over that. She'll agonize over emails that she writes. I mean, she doesn't like using computers. She likes using her phone. She has to write sort of a daily roundup on Monday evenings for all the parents of the kids that she taught on Monday. And it's a long email. It's long. I mean, it's probably 10 paragraphs long. And she types it on her phone. And I'm like, babe, open the computer up and type. It has to be faster this way. So just type it on her phone. It's this long, of course, you can only read like one paragraph at a time on a phone screen. And then she'll go back and she'll agonizingly look over the way she wrote the thing, make sure it's grammatically correct, which I think you should do. But it would just be much more efficient if that was done on a computer. And so because she hasn't given herself an artificial deadline with Parkinson's law and say, hey, I have to write this email in the next 15 minutes, not in the next, what often takes her 2 hours on a Monday night, then it takes her 2 hours on a Monday night, right? And so that is Parkinson's law. Now, the key here is we have to go on the offensive. And so in the book, we talk a lot about the defensive of pulling weeds and deprioritizing before you prioritize. And now we're actually getting into the prioritization effect. So if we go on offense, we have to start combating urgency with better habits and super focused work. And this is where things like the Pomodoro come into play. I'm not going to talk about the Pomodoro today because we've talked about that quite a bit, but it applies, right? So as a first step, one of the best things I've ever done and my staff has done is a time audit. Just audit your time, right? And again, it's because time is our most valuable and finite resource. And so when we do a time audit, what we're going to do is take back control of our calendar. So while every kind of audit, and that word is sort of like, makes a hair stand up on the back of your neck because you think about IRS audits. And so every audit is sort of tedious, but most audit type things will not be as immediately useful as a time audit. And so the concept of a time audit is simple. You just track blocks of time every 15 to 30 minutes every day for 1 week. That's it. You don't have to do it forever. Just take a normal week where you're doing normal work and audit your time, right? This is not like clocking in and out of a job where from like 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock in the evening, you're quote unquote working. I want you to make a record of literally everything that you do. So if you're a gym owner and you're coaching someone actively for an hour, and that's 4 15-minute time blocks, or you could do 30. Either one is probably fine. Go with what works for you. So even if you just find yourself staring out the window for 15 minutes or doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, you write that thing down. You're like, Instagram, 15 minutes, 18 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and you're like, oh gosh, I've been scrolling on YouTube or Instagram for that long. Whatever that is, you write that thing down. And so at the end of the week, you have an entire week, like all 7 days, including the weekend, that have every minute of time filled and you know exactly what you did. Now, there's several apps that do this and do it well. There's tons of resources out there that can help you with the time audit. I'll tell you, I've used Clockify in the past. I'm not associated with them in any way, shape, or form. It may not be the best one out there. It doesn't really even matter. You can use an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheet. You can do it on your phone, but you record exactly what you did for every 15-minute block. My time audit process is pretty simple. I set a timer, 15 or 30-minute timer. If I'm doing Pomodoros, it's a 25-minute timer with a 5-minute break. Every time the timer goes off, you stop and record that block of time. If you finish a task before the time block is up, you write it down and note how long it took. So it didn't take the full 30 minutes. It only took 22, so 22 minutes. So then I took an 8-minute break, or I moved right on to the next thing and started at this time. And it might be I started at 9:17 a.m. and not really clean, beautiful round numbers. I will often use that because of my little bit of OCD, where I'll go make a cup of coffee, maybe I go to the bathroom, and then when I hit a round number, time to start again, right? So as soon as you can, you start the next block really immediately. And what this does is a time audit is really the ultimate hack to killing procrastination. And I'll say I wasn't always good at this. I think people think maybe that I was born this way and did this. Man, I was really lazy in college. I wasted a lot of time playing video games and ping pong, just time wasters. And so it wasn't innate in me until as I got older in life, I recognized, look, when you're 18, 19 years old, some of you are probably super ambitious. My little brother was from early on in his life. Most of us don't really have a lot of super important things to do. The most important thing we have to do is to kind of complete schoolwork or to go to our, early jobs, low wage jobs that we have when we're 18, 19 years old. As you get older and you have a family, a spouse, children, a business to run, personal health, spiritual disciplines, all of those sorts of things, you start to recognize there are lots of important things in your life that you need to make room for. And you have to do that by making sure that you follow the basics of the Eisenhower matrix of absolutely dismissing or getting rid of the things that are not urgent and not important, delegating as best you can the things that are urgent but not important, really focusing your efforts on the things that are urgent and important with efficiency, Pomodoros, time audits. This is the sort of thing that really works well so that you can spend more and more time on the things that really matter most, which when you're 18 might not be that many things. But when you're 46, 47, 50 years old, 35 years old, whatever, especially if you have a family, if you run a business, there are many important things that you have to take care of. So accurate time auditing will help you in a few different ways. It will show you the minor tasks that should take less than 3 minutes, but tend to occupy entire blocks of time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, etc. It'll also help you take note of when you are distracted or trying to focus on too many things at once. A clear win here, Chris and I talked about this a couple years ago, that the best winners in business are the ones that are able to hyper focus and get crap done. Like just knock stuff out, get things accomplished, high output actions, right? So finally, labeling the time blocks by goals based on the Eisenhower matrix, important and urgent quadrants, will help in the next step of this process where we assign a job to each block of time. So much like YNAB assigns a job to every dollar, we assign a job to every minute or block of time, 15-minute block, 30-minute block, etc. So a time audit isn't just an exercise in record keeping. I want to be clear. It's a powerful method of habit building change. Simply by writing down and thinking about your time will change how you use the time for the better. Many people experience unprecedented productivity during their first time audit, even if that wasn't the aim of the exercise. I can't help but think about it's like a visual food diary that we use at Barbell Logic, where when someone first comes on as a nutrition client, rather than giving them their macro goals or whatever the thing is, we just have them take a picture of every single thing they eat. And we tell them, look, we want you to just eat the way you normally eat. Like, if you're sneaking Reese's peanut butter cups, out of your desk drawer, or drinking 3 or 4 beers at night, like just do that. But they don't. The idea of taking a picture and having some accountability there immediately changes their eating habits. And that wasn't even really the goal, right? And so you're trying to make a judgment call as a coach, like, okay, so this is what I'm seeing, but they've gained 50 pounds over the past 2 years. This probably isn't exactly the way they've been eating the last 2 years. And you can make adjustments based on that, based on, how much expertise you have in that world. So when you do this time audit, it is likely that you're going to find a lot of not urgent, not important tasks, as well as urgent, not important tasks. So the 2 quadrants of not important that you're going to have to deal with. So as you see those unimportant tasks, as I mentioned, if they are not urgent, not important, get rid of them, eliminate them. If they're urgent and not important, delegate them. Focus your time on the urgent and important items and work as efficiently as possible in dealing with the urgent and important. This is why we do a time audit. Now, when we come back to how we started the show in Parkinson's law, one of the ways that we do that, and a Pomodoro is sort of a way to do that. It's a 25-minute time slot that's set up so that you get as much work done on a specific goal in 25 minutes. It all comes back to Parkinson's law, where it's important to use that to your advantage. While Parkinson's law is often looked at as a negative, The work will fill the amount of time allotted. If you take control of the time allotted, you can practice aggressive and artificial deadlines and give yourself almost creating an internal competition of how fast you can get the work done. The work still needs to be done well. I want to be clear. Efficiency doesn't mean sloppy. Like, it's good work. It's excellent work, right? And remember that when you create those deadlines, meeting a deadline is not success, and or missing a deadline is not failure. Success is completing the task. That's the goal. So if you set, again, an artificial deadline for, I have to get this thing done in 2 Pomodoros, or let's say in 1 hour's worth of time, and it takes you an hour and a half, that wasn't a loss. That's still a win, especially if you would have in previous days and previous months and previous lives, you would have given yourself a week to complete the task or a whole day to complete a task. At the end of the day, if I get one thing done, I don't feel very good about it unless it is a massive, massive project, right? So then that comes back to how I plan my day. You have to pre-plan your day. This doesn't take very long at all. And as you get better at it, it becomes more efficient. So I've talked about this before as well, that often my very first Pomodoro, and listen, while I get up really early in the morning and I make coffee and I walk my dog, I come in, I'm still pretty groggy in the morning, just like everybody else is. I mean, it's just my groggy's at 3 a.m. or 3:30 in the morning and not at 5 or 6 or 7 or whenever you wake up. But I still have that same kind of, there's still a little fog, right? Until the caffeine kicks in and whatnot. But the first thing I do, which doesn't take a lot of bandwidth for my brain, is I pre-plan my day. And I pre-plan it for me. This is not the only way to do this, but I pre-plan it for me with laying out the tasks that I can get done quickly that are both urgent and important. So online coaching, emails, Basecamp notifications, things like that. My goal, I set a competition goal for myself to have all my online coaching completely done by 5 a.m. every single morning. And again, I realize you're going to hear that and be like, that is crazy. I'm not doing that. You don't have to do that. Just figure out the right time to do it, right? Maybe yours is done by 7 a.m. Maybe you do it in the evenings before you go to bed. You're like, I'm going to put my kids down at 7 p.m. From 7 to 8, I'm going to do my online coaching. And then I'm going to spend, because you probably stay up later than me, I get to spend the next couple hours from 8 to 10 p.m. with my spouse, watching good TV. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to binge watch something, but if I'm watching a good TV show or a great movie or documentary with my wife, that's good quality time. I would say that's not just a total time waster. And so I pre-plan my day. I say, look, this is what I have to do first. I'm looking at this time period, as I've talked about in the past couple of weeks on the podcast, of kind of 3:30 in the morning, or maybe let's say it's 4 a.m. when I actually start working. By the time I wake up and go to the bathroom, walk the dog, make coffee, things like that. Let's say I actually start working at 4. My family wakes up around 7, 6:45, somewhere in there. I have several hours, of 3-ish hours to knock out all this urgent work. Now, for me, what I'd really like to do is train at 5:30 or so in the morning. I'd like to get my urgent work done by 5:30 or 6 at the latest. But the problem I've found is that I wake my whole family up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning. If I'm deadlifting downstairs and all the bedrooms are right above the gym, I can't do that. So I can't train until my family wakes up. So the goal is to get as much urgent work out of the way as I can, and then move on to the important CEO type work from there. Some of that work I will often get done before my family wakes up. And then I'm sort of ahead on schedule. Family wakes up, have the protein shake, do the training, walk with my wife. Maybe I go out and do the sauna and the hot tub and the cold plunge. I'll do that kind of stuff. And then I come back in. And by the way, if I'm doing a time audit, I track all that sort of stuff. In a sauna, I use 2 primary metrics. How much time have I stayed in? And what's my heart rate? And if I've hit the goal for the time and the heart rate, I get out of the sauna. I usually stumble out. It's really hot. Land in the cold plunge, get in the cold plunge for usually 3 minutes, maybe up to 5. And sometimes it's only 2 because I'm dying and I'm freezing. And I get out and maybe I'll go to the hot tub for 5 minutes or so and get warm again. And then back to the cold plunge one more time. It just depends on how much time I have and how quickly I got the work done. After that, it's right back into work. But now the work isn't urgent and important. The work is important. Or if it's urgent and important, it's the slightly less urgent, slightly more important stuff. It's the financials, and we're kind of at the end of the quarter here. So it's getting all the quarterly reports ready to go for the team and for the board of directors, and working with my VP of finance. And That stuff didn't have to be done by 5 a.m. this morning, but it does need to get done this week. And so there is some urgency there. And there's far more importance to that than to answering my emails or responding to Basecamp notifications. And so I don't like that stuff hanging over my head. So I get that stuff out of the way. All of this comes back to the time audit. I did a time audit I did it for about 2 months, and to see where there were places where there were inefficiencies in my schedule where I could do better. And I work pretty efficient, and that's fine. So I still learned a ton. And I can tell you right now that I certainly worked more efficiently while doing the time audit than I work when I don't do a time audit. And I'm still a pretty efficient worker. And so I love the concept of a time audit. If you haven't done it before, again, there's a lot of great stuff in the book that's going to come out about that. There's also great stuff on the time audit from Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. We just wrote an article on the importance of a time audit for Forbes on their blog. Easiest way probably to find that is just to go to the ryanmattreynolds.com site. If you scroll down to the bottom where the content is, it's going to be the most recent one. You can click on that. That'll take you right both to a summary of that article on my site and then the full article on the Forbes site. So you can check that out. These time audits are really, really important. And then the other thing is, as I usually mention, is this is the reason Turnkey Coach was invented, was to help us be more efficient at our job, not worse, more efficient and better service, right? Cutting out the waste. Customer service isn't waste. Customer service is highly, hyper important. But all that wasted time of downloading videos and uploading videos to YouTube and sharing the videos and doing there's a lot of waste in most programming softwares. And this is why we think Turnkey Coach is the premier online coaching software in the world. And not just for online coaching, but for in-person coaching as well. It's tremendous for programming for your in-person clients as well. So you can always go check that out at turnkey.coach. We are constantly thinking about efficiency because, coming back to our very basic core value, we want to do these things: strength training, strength coaching, to improve quality of life. If you can get your training done in a more efficient manner, and you get stronger and you get the health benefits from it, then you've improved your quality of life, but you've also done that in a more efficient way that's bought back your time. You can do the same thing as a coach. If you can coach faster, more efficient, more effective, spend more time talking to and interacting with your clients and less time doing administrative tasks, then we've done the same thing for the coach and improved their quality of life as well. So if you don't know where your time is going, a time audit is a fantastic thing to do. I would suggest, even if you do know where your time is going, you should do this once a year or so, once every 6 months, especially if there's any sort of major change in your life. If you move, if you take on a new job, anything like that, that'd be a great time to do a week or 2 weeks at most on a time audit and just see where you're spending your time. So there you go. Another episode of the Coaching Success Series on the Barbell Logic podcast. If you received value from this, we would love a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please tell a friend, family member, business owner, potential client, potential coach. We want to help as many people as we can. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Beautiful fall weather. Love this time of year. Trees are turning early here in Missouri. I don't know about everybody else. Typically trees turn kind of late October. Get a lot of colors out already here at the end of September. So I hope you guys get to enjoy some of the fall foliage. Go to some of those fall festivals with your family. Make the time to do that. Get up tomorrow morning. Get up on Saturday morning and knock out 2 hours of good urgent work. And then spend the rest of the day with your family, having a great time, being an awesome dad, great mom, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you guys next Friday.